Welcome to Seamless Tactics, where we share leadership insights through storytelling, featuring interviews with local leaders and professionals weaving in their career journey and leadership style. I'm your host, Swan. Today we're with our lucky guest, Alex Swan of CWS. You're currently the site director here in Harrisburg, so we're glad to have you on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Wen. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're here at North Front Street, get a great view of the river right here. So could you just tell us a little bit more about yourself in case our audience doesn't know you?
Yeah, definitely. So as Wen said, my name is Alex Swan. I'm the site director for Church World Service Harrisburg. I joined the CWS team in December of 2021. Before that, I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Botswana after graduating from Messiah University. At that time, of course, was Messiah College, which I'm still getting used to. That slight difference, but important difference. And between the Peace Corps and starting with CWS, I also had a job with the state, which brought me to the Harrisburg area in the first place, and allowed me to get a general idea of the landscape of this community, which I know we're going to talk more about in this podcast. But really fortunate to start and build my career, and really am enjoying the role I'm currently as the site director for CWS Harrisburg.
No, that's awesome. So you talk about Messiah College then, now it's Messiah University. So have you always lived in the central PA region? Is that
Yeah.
like what made you come back to this area?
Yeah, for the most part. I grew up in Lidditz, so not that
Okay.
far away. In fact, we just had a meeting with our colleagues from CWS Lancaster, who of course have had an office much longer than CWS Harrisburg. They've been in existence since the 1980s. We just had a leadership meeting with them in E-Town.
Okay.
So it's still nice to have an excuse to also travel to the Lancaster area. But yeah, since more or less when I attended Messiah from 2012 to 2016, besides a short stint in the Peace Corps, which of course was in another country, I more or less have been here in the greater Harrisburg area.
Gotcha. Um, so about CWS Harrisburg, I know that this site has been kind of started in a couple of years ago. For the audience that isn't aware of CWS, could you share a little bit more about its mission, its visions, some of the things that you guys are doing within the state?
Yeah. So CWS is a global organization. They have a presence in over 30 countries around the world.
Wow.
So they're doing all sorts of really important, amazing things across the globe, but specifically to local offices throughout the United States. Really, the bread and butter is two things. One of them is refugee resettlement and immigration services. And then there's also crop hunger walks, which take place across the country in different communities, which raises money both for local hunger prevention work as well as hunger prevention and alleviation work across the globe. And so most people who have heard about Church World Service or CWS, they either know it for the refugee resettlement immigration service component of it or the crop hunger walks. So here in the Harrisburg office, we are a refugee resettlement agency, meaning that Church World Service is one of the 10 national refugee resettlement agencies that has a contract with the federal government to provide resettlement services to newcomers from around the world. So we are one of the many local offices throughout the country. And I think we'll go a little bit more in depth in terms of some of the programs that we have to offer, but that's just generally what our office does here in Harrisburg. But we're really, our mission is to transform communities locally and abroad, providing just and sustainable responses to hunger, poverty, disaster, as well as displacement. And so when I think about that mission statement, really our focus here is responding to that displacement piece and welcoming newcomers from around the world and making sure that they have the resources and the support that they need to become self-sufficient and contribute back to our communities.
No, I think that's a great mission to support, one around hunger, poverty, and others like supporting refugees as they are entering a brand new country, a brand new culture. So, you being a site director here in Harrisburg, what's like some of the interesting things that you have learned or witnessed in your first couple of years here helping out the refugees?
Yeah, I think we can all agree for those who work in CWS or generally in refugee resettlement, no day is the same, which I think is one of the reasons we love this type of work. You get to meet people with really amazing stories and backgrounds coming from different countries and cultures. and get to know them on a personal level, and hear, you know, their journey to where they are now, and we're just a piece of that bigger story of who they are as a person. And so being able to do everything from greet them at the airport, oftentimes we get to do that in collaboration with the local community, specifically groups of volunteers. So many of them have come, you know, with welcome signs and balloons and gifts and different things like that. Really a celebration of that individual or that family that gets, you know, another opportunity to restart their lives in a new home country, is just so powerful, and wants us to continue to do this really important work. So I've learned a lot since when I started in
I
December of
bet.
2021. You know, when you and I have talked, I believe we said it was probably about a year ago this
Yep.
time. And looking back, even since the last time we spoke,
Yeah.
I'm continuing to learn about this field, this community, and how we can best support our newcomers, and really set them up for success here in the greater Harrisburg area. We're also going through some tremendous growth as an
Okay.
office. So when I started, it was literally just me.
Yep.
And at that time, it was the tail end of the fall of Kabul and the Afghan evacuation. So
Okay.
really my priority and our office's priority was responding to the situation in Afghanistan, and making a welcoming community for our Afghan newcomers. And then the focus sort of pivoted as that crisis, you know, quote unquote came to an end. Of course, there's still lingering effects from that crisis, but the moment of that time came to an end. We expanded our services beyond just our Afghan newcomers and into the traditional refugee and resettlement placement program, or RMP, providing services to a variety of folks from different countries. In our office, we primarily see people from the Democratic Republic of Congo, Syria, Guatemala, and we continue to see a lot of people from Afghanistan. Uh, and so we started that program, and then since then have built up a lot of additional wraparound services to provide that more longer term integration support as well. And so with that has been tremendous growth. Again, I think we'll talk more specifically about just the sheer numbers.
Yeah.
But I think as I think about what I've learned as a director since opening the office in December of 2021 all the way until April of 2024, we were just living in such a historic, urgent, monumental time of refugee resettlement and immigration services. And it's so cool to be a leader of an office of amazing, talented people that are all in for that mission to
Yeah.
transforming communities and welcoming our new neighbors. And so I'm really proud of the work that we've been able to accomplish in such a short period of time here at the CWS Harrisburg office, and also just as equally as excited about what more we can do in this community.
No, absolutely. So no, you talked about the programs, the services that your team provides. So, for a lot of us, we don't really know what goes through like the daily life of an immigrant, let alone a refugee. So, could you share a little bit about what your team does to better support refugees from, I guess inception day, right when they land, to like them getting assimilated into the culture and like the American life.
Yeah. So, like you said, and like I previously spoke to, we are there from the day that they come to the airport,
Yep.
right? And so, again, ideally, we walk alongside community members and have groups of volunteers that also walk alongside our staff to greet them at the airport. And then from there, really the real work, starts. We identify housing. We have an
Okay.
amazing housing team that is constantly out in the community making critical connections with property management companies and landlords who have been just so instrumental in welcoming our newcomers. I mean, without all of our landlords and property management companies and other community connections, without them, really, this work isn't possible. And so we greatly appreciate them opening up their properties, their apartments, their homes to welcome our newcomers. So picking them up from the airport, getting them to housing, which of course we furnish and fully set up. And then from there, there's a whole host of mandated core services that we have to provide within that first 3 month or 90-day
Okay.
period. So again, that's everything from the airport pickup and housing, but also school enrollment, starting the job search, medical appointments, transportation, cultural orientation, everything that is necessary for starting your life in another community. So we go through those core services and provide those to our newcomers. And then from there, we also have a whole host of other longer term integration support services as well. We have a really great program called Matching Grant, which is
Okay.
focused on employment services and making sure the family reaches economic self-sufficiency within 240 days. We also have a program that is run by the state of Pennsylvania Refugee Support Services, similar to the matching grant program, where it's focused on employment services and making sure that families are self-sufficient. So both the matching grant program and the RSS, or Refugee Support Service program, our clients are linked with employment specialists who help them from everything, starting with writing a job resume to taking them to a job interview,
Wow.
securing employment, and then making sure that if there's any barriers such as transportation, childcare, any of those things that would prohibit their ability to have a job, they work with our team to make sure that we eliminate those barriers so that we can set them up for success with employment. And then we also have some other specialized services as well. One of them is called Preferred Communities Intensive Case Management.
Okay.
That program is really amazing because it is set up specifically to work with the most vulnerable clients that we welcome and support. So there's a variety of different vulnerability categories that we look at. We do an assessment that can be everything from a single parent, elderly, someone with a severe medical issue, and then they're connected with an intensive case manager who walks alongside them all the way up for 2 years to provide that really intensive long-term support. And we also are doing some really cool things more locally, in addition to those bigger, federal and state grant funded programs. We work with an amazing team that is always thinking outside the box and doing some local, very specific targeted program to address some of the needs that we identify in our community. So one that comes to the top of mind is mental health and well-being support. We've noticed that pretty early on that was a need common across all of the populations that we serve.
Okay.
And so we were really fortunate to get a local grant to provide some specialized mental health and well-being support services to a growing Afghan community in Carlisle. That was sort of a pilot in that community, and it worked out very, very well. So we're actually pursuing other funding opportunities to sort of expand that across the entire region as well. And then lastly, I think one of the things I love to talk about when we talk about programming in CWS Harrisburg is a program called CWS Marketplace.
Okay.
This was a program that we started pretty much as soon as our office opened. Again, got local funding from a few different foundations to provide women's entrepreneurship and business training. And
Okay.
so we have newcomers when they come. We do a quick assessment if they are interested in receiving that type of support, and look at what skills and abilities they have, and then bring that to the market. So we have a lot of wonderful clients who do amazing cooking and cook some delicious, fantastic dishes, and we get to display those at local events. We participate in Capona.
Yeah.
We even participated in Wolfstock one
Oh,
year.
wow, really?
And our CWS Marketplace clients actually made handmade dog neckerchiefs or scarves. So we get creative, and that's just such an amazing program. Yes, there's a small economic impact that those clients receive to help contribute towards the self-sufficiency of their families, but more importantly, it's really just a social program that brings together women from all different backgrounds and countries to share, their skill sets and their abilities and create that community of support. And it's been really, really neat to see how that's positively impacted so many of our women refugee clients that we've been able to welcome.
Wow. Um, so I'm just grateful that you and your team are able to support new refugees coming in. So it sounds like you help them with housing, you help them with um, uh, employment, you also help them from a mental health perspective. So just when you're welcoming refugees, typically how many like family members are there? Is it typically just one? Is it like seven? Like what's the average incoming refugees that you guys host?
Yeah. So in terms of the average family size, I would say it's probably somewhere between like 4 and 5.
Okay.
We have a fair bit that are much larger than that. We have some pretty big families, anywhere from 8 to I think we've had up to 14.
Oh, wow.
But then we also have a fair amount of individuals as well that come. So it's probably somewhere in the middle there, maybe
Okay.
4 to 5, something like that. Obviously, with those different dynamics, bring different opportunities and different challenges in terms of housing. We've had a lot more success identifying bigger, more affordable properties in Harrisburg City. And then if we're working with individuals, that's another unique challenge because sometimes it's more difficult to find those single, studio apartments or one bedroom apartments. Um, but all in all, I mean, I just am so thankful for the team that we have assembled here in the Harrisburg office who are providing really life saving, critical support to these families and these individuals that are coming to the community and putting them in a position where they can be self sufficient and really thrive here in the greater Harrisburg area.
No, so thanks for giving us like an overview of CWS, the services, the program you provide. So in terms of like success, could you share a little bit of what your team has accomplished in last year?
Yeah, we could talk about that for a while. I'm just so proud of the work that we've been able to accomplish. I think some of the highlights, we really going back to that mental health and well being program that I mentioned called Circle of Care. At the same time as we were launching that program, it was having tremendous localized benefits, but it was, at the same time, there was some bigger conversations happening at the federal and national level. In particular, there was a grant opportunity that became available just as we were sort of finishing the pilot program
Okay.
through the Office of Refugee Resettlement to nationalize and expand mental health and well-being services.
Okay.
So because we did the groundwork of, you know, going and securing funding at a local level, providing those critical services, it set us up in just great shape to pursue other bigger funding opportunities to expand those critical services in the area. So that program was a huge success. As I spoke to, I think our ongoing CWS Marketplace program continues to be one of the highlights of our office and a tremendous success and really powerful and impactful for our women refugee neighbors in particular. And then in general, I think our office has done an amazing job of just stepping up and meeting this historic critical time in refugee resettlement. The current administration has set the presidential determination for the number of refugees that can come to the country at 125,000.
Wow.
And then in addition to that, there's also an additional 20 to 25,000 set for special immigrant visas as well. And we welcome both those populations, both refugees and special immigrant visas or SIVs. So really, if you combine those two, it's really closer to about 145,000 that this administration would like to welcome and resettle in the federal fiscal year. And so because of that, there's been tremendous pressure across all agencies and across the country to look at our capacity and try to increase it as much as possible to meet that historic number. I mean, that's the highest the presidential determination has been set for a few decades.
Oh, wow.
And so our office is really excited about that and has gone all in. More specifically, we increased our stated capacity of the number of folks that we're going to welcome here through the Harrisburg office. From when we first opened in March of 2022, we were at right around 100.
Okay.
Then we increased it to 135, then to 250, and now we're all the way up to 400. And we actually expect going closer to 450 when it's all said and done. So just in that very short, little over 2 year period, we've basically quadrupled the size of our office and the amount of people that we're saying yes to and welcoming here to the area. So I think that's something we can really be proud of and something that stands out in terms of an accomplishment that this office has done over the past 2 years.
Absolutely. I think that's an absolute testament to you, your team, everything that you guys have done. And I'm sure that everyone in the community that you've supported is grateful for that. So thank you to you and your team. So before we like jump into like things that you're going to be doing for this year, I'll just take a brief pause to kind of thank Regional Chamber and Creedict. Their goal is to be a catalyst for dynamic job creation and improve the quality of life in our region, specifically Cumberland, Dauphin, and Perry County. They are one of the few, specifically only 5% of the chambers to get the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's 5-star accreditation. So special thanks to the Chamber for bringing this episode to life.
Yeah, absolutely, Wen. And I would like to echo those comments as well and just say thank you to the support from the Harrisburg Regional Chamber and Creedic. I know that they've been a strong advocate and supporter of the work that we do since the beginning. Quite
Okay.
literally, they were one of the first people that provided a quote and support for the opening of our office here in Harrisburg. And we're also really looking forward to the amazing events that they put together, including Vibe, which is
Yeah.
next week. So yeah, we're really grateful for their support as well.
Yes, thank you to the chamber. So jumping right back into like the things that your team is doing. Could you share a little bit of the things that you guys are going to be doing this year? What you're doing to kind of prep for it? You just mentioned about quadrupling the number of refugees that you're welcoming. So,
Yeah.
yeah, just share a little bit more of the team's goals for this year.
Yeah, so things certainly are not slowing down. Again, I think we could talk a very long time about all that we've accomplished, but also, as we think about the rest of this year and this moment of time, right now we're in the middle of our annual appeal. It's our
Okay.
first ever annual appeal. Our goal is to raise $40,000 to meet this urgent and historic time in refugee resettlement. The reality is that a lot of the programs that support our staff and our clients are pretty underfunded. We have very limited funding, especially as we think about how much of that support goes directly to our families and the clients that we serve. It's basically more or less a little bit over $1,000 per person that we have to spend within that first 90 days. As you might imagine, if we have one person and they're only getting a little over $1,000, that's enough maybe to cover a security deposit.
Yeah.
And so the need is urgent. It really is. And so we would greatly appreciate any support to help us meet our $40,000 goal of our first ever annual appeal. We are running it from now until May 15th. So anyone who is interested in contributing to this urgent and big need, especially as it relates to housing and utility expenses for our newcomers, we'd be so greatly appreciative of that. You can check out our website,
Yep.
cwsharrisburg.org. Of course, we also accept checks and cash. And so our website also has all that information of other ways to give as well. But that's something that's really exciting and such a big need in this current moment. So there's our annual appeal. We also have World Refugee Day, which is coming up. World Refugee Day is recognized internationally. And so we think it's important to be a part of that celebration of refugees and all they contribute to our communities. So last year we had our first inaugural World Refugee Day block party
Okay.
right outside here at the back of our parking lot. We had food trucks and music and a photo booth and inflatables and all that fun stuff. And it was just an amazing day just to celebrate the diversity and inclusion of Harrisburg, as well as our new neighbors and the community at large for being such a welcoming city and community. So we're going to do that again this year. It'll
Okay.
take place on Saturday, June 22nd,
Okay.
from 12 to 3 p.m. And that again will be right behind our office in the parking lot. And we have even more things planned this year. We'll have additional food trucks that'll be available. We're also having some local groups from different cultures and backgrounds that are going to be doing dancing and singing and just a celebration. So if you're in the area, again, on Saturday, June 22nd from 1 to 3 p.m., from 12 to 3 p.m., we would love to have you come to that event and celebrate um, the diversity and inclusion of Harrisburg. So those are probably the two things that are happening the soonest, and really excited about those. And then as we look into the rest of the year, we of course have our big annual fundraising event, which is
Okay.
called International Friendsgiving. This will be our third year doing that event. It is always the Saturday before Thanksgiving. I believe this year is November 23rd. Yes, November 23rd is the date this year. So the idea behind that is actually working very closely with our CWS Marketplace women entrepreneurs and clients, and taking their recipes from their home countries, which they share so graciously with us, and then working with community members and local caterers to produce those meals and really provide people with an educational component to the work that we do, so that they get to experience a tangible, delicious meal from another country. We usually have between 4 or 5 different parts to that meal, of course, including a dessert as well. And then there's additional educational materials that come with it. So, we have website materials, we have videos, we have one pagers that highlight the stories as told by those women entrepreneurs, the way that they want it to be told, as well as country information about their countries that they come from. So just a really cool celebration, something very unique to our office and what we do. So yeah, we're really excited for the third year of that International Friendsgiving event. And then, of course, just continuing the work that we do, welcoming our newcomers in this historic time, and also doing fun things like, in a couple of weeks we'll have a big celebration in partnership with Messiah University, where we'll have an opportunity to bring together the community and have like a family fun carnival day
Okay.
there. So yeah, we're always having a lot of fun as well, which is really important in this work, and really speaks to this time, this moment. Not only addressing the huge need, but also making sure that we're taking a step back to celebrate everything that is going on in our local community.
No, absolutely. So, just touching on International Friendsgiving Day, you talk about the recipes that the women cook, and I'm sure it's probably one of those things that they like to do because they get to reminisce about the food they used to eat back at home, brings them back a little bit closer to their culture. I guess my one question to you would be like, what was one of your favorite food that you got to eat during International Friendsgiving Day that was like your favorite, I guess?
Yeah, I think when I think of International Friendsgiving, it was probably the first one that we had. We at the time had some wonderful Ukrainian new neighbors that we were working very closely with in
Okay.
some of our programs, and they brought forward their traditional Ukrainian apple pie.
Okay.
And the cool thing about that was they literally came to the local mosque that we were partnering with hours before the event to hand bake their pies right there and then. So they were fresh coming out of the oven, and they were just absolutely fantastic and delicious. So yeah, that was probably my highlight thus far. And not only that, but probably more importantly, is like we actually got to meet the chefs and hear their stories about their life in Ukraine, and then also their life now here in the United States. So really
Yeah.
powerful moment.
And
Yeah.
I think when you do International Friendsgiving Day, you kind of showed a clip of the recipe, a clip of the bios. I think last I saw for last year, I think you guys partnered with the Central PA Food Bank.
We
Is that
did,
yeah?
yeah. That's yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. When we did, I mean, we have an amazing partnership with the Central PA Food Bank. We're just so grateful for them and all their support. They've gone above and beyond the call of duty to make sure that our new neighbors have culturally appropriate food when they need it, and we're just blown away by their support. But yeah, for International Friendsgiving, we set up a time where the women chefs who were putting together the food for International Friendsgiving, the food bank was generous enough to give us some space in one of their kitchens to do a video showing them actually preparing their dishes and speaking to their stories. So that was really neat.
Yeah.
And those are the types of things that we want to continue to do as we build out the International Friendsgiving event.
As the site director, I think you've mentioned that you learned a lot. Like, what are some of the things that you've learned or like had to adapt to kind of really meet that demand, or like how did you handle all that stress and pressure?
Yeah, I'd be lying to say if it was all easy, right?
Yeah.
There's like anything in life, there's ups and downs and growths and challenges. I think for me, the biggest thing that we've done in this office in particular is really build out our team and our capacity and our leadership team in particular. We now have two associate directors that oversee our two departments, one being resettlement, which is focused more on those first 90-day support services.
Okay.
And then we have an associate director overseeing our integration services, more of the long-term economic type services, as well as the ICM intensive case management program that I previously mentioned. And then we also have an amazing development and communication officer who's also a part of the leadership team. And as I spoke to earlier, we collaborate very closely with the CWS Lancaster office as well. And so when I think about leadership and what I've learned over the past few years starting this office, just so thankful for our team coming together and being extremely collaborative, and thinking about creative ways that we can respond to such this urgent time and really historic time in refugee resettlement. So for me, that's been sort of, as a leader looking back, I'm now in a place where like I can let go, which is something I haven't been able to do really since the beginning when we opened the office. Being literally the only person for a few months, trying to open a new office, plus be a case manager and everything else in between. I was very heavily involved in everything, but now I have a trusted leadership team that is filled with tremendously talented and smart individuals. And so, as a leader, I think the best thing that I can do is just empower them and provide them with the support that they need to then empower and support their own teams to respond to this moment in time. I think in refugee resettlement and immigration services in general, I truly believe in the power of servant leadership. So making sure that I'm always staying connected with the field staff, really the staff that are boots on the ground, doing everything from the airport pickup to picking up a hot meal for that family's first night in Harrisburg, to taking them to a job interview at 7 in the morning, all those critically important things that are so easy to overlook.
Yeah.
Just making sure that I don't lose touch with that as a leader, making sure that I'm doing the best that I can to support our team. Also providing opportunities for staff well-being too, because the reality is this work is really important, and we are living in a very historic time. And with that, there's also a lot of burdens that are put on our staff. And so making sure we have outlets, such as fun events or lunches together as a staff, just simple things that can really go a long way to make sure that as an organization we're, making sure our staff are being taken care of, and that they have, the opportunities to just kind of debrief, detox a little bit, and just take a step back and take a deep breath as they get back to work. And then lastly, just being extremely flexible and adaptable as a leader. I'm also currently pursuing some additional school studies. I'm in a PhD program right now around leadership, and we're always talking about adaptable leadership and just being able to respond to the moment of each day. And so I've learned a lot in that department as well. Not everything's going to go perfectly or as you thought it might,
Yep.
but even in those moments where things do seem to kind of fall apart, there's still a lot of lessons that can be learned from those things. And then when you get an opportunity to do it again, making sure that you implement those lessons learned and just trying to continually improve as a leader, as an office.
So, over the past couple of years, now that you have seen the team grow and everything, I'm not sure, like when you first started, you could see that. So, what advice would you give what would you give your younger self when you just started out just by yourself, having this enormous pressure, or like, what advice would you give somebody that's just starting out on their own, doing something and not sure what to do, not knowing what the future will hold? Like, what advice would you give that person?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because CWS, as well as all the other national refugee resettlement agencies, are going under tremendous growth right now in order to meet this moment in time. And so I actually have the opportunities to talk to new site directors
Okay.
who are, about to start the journey that I did in December of 2021,
Okay.
where it's literally just them opening an office and then hiring staff and building up an office. So I've thought about this probably more than I thought I would as I speak to these new directors. And I give them a few bits and pieces of advice. One of them is take advantage of the time that you do have at the beginning to make sure you learn the community in which you're going to be welcoming and supporting your new neighbors. We have so many amazing community partners. I know we highlighted a few of them throughout this conversation, but without them, really, this work is not possible. And so, I think, when I look back at my journey, I think I probably could have done even more of that, is really being intentional about just getting to know people in the community, getting to know other leaders, getting to know community organizations that walk alongside us to support our new neighbors. I think that's critically important when you open a new office. Other things, just again, building a very good team around you is so critically important. We have amazing, talented staff in our office that just do tremendous work, and I'm so grateful for them. And without them, none of this would be possible. So really taking your time about recruiting efforts and making sure that you are hiring people who are really all in for the mission, because at the end of the day, that's why we're here, right? We truly believe in the mission of CWS and the impact that we're having in our local community, and really the life-saving support services that we're providing to people from around the world that otherwise would not have, this opportunity and this support. So I think it's really important for leaders to be intentional about their recruitment efforts, to build a team around them that they can trust, and do, as you can see in our office, in just a few short years, do some really amazing things.
Yeah, no, I think it's amazing of what you guys have done. I mean, just the fact that you went from your first visit to, I think, Middletown to pick up your first family, to now that you guys have, in totality, probably welcomed over 200 families, probably, I would say.
Yeah, in terms of families, I don't know the exact number, but in terms of just sheer, if we break it down to an individual level, we're over 500 at
Over
this point,
500, okay.
including our refugee resettlement program, but all the other programs. And then if we include people that we're not just welcoming and just have provided support, we're well over that number. Even I would probably say closer to 1,000 at this point. So yeah, it's
Okay.
been really quite something to see. Starting in December of 2021, where I still remember going to the airport to pick up my very first family from Afghanistan, to now, having that impact on that many people has been really awesome to see.
No, that's great. So again, thanks for sharing a lot of that. So as we're kind of gearing towards the end of the episode and before the rapid fire questions, anything else you'd like to kind of share with the audience to kind of make them again aware of the situation? I think you kind of talked a lot, but if there was a last call to action, what would you like to share with our audience today?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easiest thing that anyone can do right now is to contribute to the annual appeal that we have going on.
Okay.
It's such a critical need that our office has and continues to have in terms of ensuring that we can provide that direct financial support to our clients to make sure that we meet all of the different unique needs and challenges that they have. So that's probably the easiest thing. Any amount is greatly appreciated. And then, in addition to that, we're always looking for volunteers and groups of people to do anything from buying a hot meal for a family for their first night in Harrisburg, to being an ESL tutor, to driving an individual or a family to a medical appointment. It doesn't have to be a huge time commitment. If you have, one day a month where you can say, yep, I'm going to commit and go all into helping a family get to that medical appointment or whatever it may be. We greatly appreciate any level of support in that way as well. But I think just I would end with as we think about this conversation and this moment in time we're living in, there's obviously so much happening that it can be easy to kind of get caught up in the weeds of feeling maybe a little overwhelmed or overburdened. And so that's why it's so just I just really appreciate this opportunity to speak to just this historic time in refugee resettlement and the variety of different ways that people can walk alongside CWS Harrisburg, but more importantly, walk alongside our new neighbors that we're welcoming to this ever growing, diverse community that is the greater Harrisburg area.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll have more of the information in the show notes, the website, the links as well, and then any other artifacts that we can share. We'll make sure that you guys can see that. But then, yeah, you can always also follow CWS Harrisburg, Instagram, Facebook, and anywhere else that you guys have social media, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we love that.
Awesome. So now we're heading towards the end of our episode. So what I like to ask our folks that I interview is just, again, rapid fire questions. Three of the same questions, just so that when we're done the season, then I can see, hey, what do everyone's, does anybody have the same answers or if that's effect? So the first one I'll ask is, who's your favorite leader and why?
Yeah, so I put a little thought into this.
Okay.
I know when you had posed this question last time we spoke, and I think at that time I picked Nelson Mandela, who of course is still one of my all-time favorite leaders. But I think for this round two, I would say
Okay.
Abraham Lincoln is
Abraham
a
Lincoln, okay.
close second. Um, I just think, of course, there's no comparison to the moment in time we're living in now to what Abraham Lincoln,
Yeah.
of course, was dealing with. But nonetheless, when I think of Abraham Lincoln, he's obviously a leader who responded to that moment in time, and more importantly, was able to work with people from a variety of different backgrounds and opinions. He had to really convince a lot of people that were adamantly opposed to what he was trying to accomplish of why they should join in the effort, particularly as it relates to the freedom of slaves. And so for him to do that and get a lot of people who initially were against those things, I think just speaks to such an aspirational leader of what a leader can be in terms of bringing people together,
Yep.
being morally centered in something they truly believe in, and being willing to speak up and hold their ground when they get resistance against something they believed in, and then ultimately see that be accomplished. I think that's really inspirational, and what you can aspire to be as a leader is bringing everyone together to accomplish a mission and a vision that you truly believe in.
Okay, so that's a very good one. I mean, I was just recently at the National Civil War Museum, so that really resonates with me at the moment. So then the second question I ask you is then, what's your favorite leadership quote to share or live by?
Yeah. Again, I might steal the script of the previous interview that
Okay.
we did, but very simple, and I won't even call it a leadership quote. But one quote that I've taken wholeheartedly is "Just do it," the Nike slogan. Um, Again, I think it's very easy to get it caught up in the day to day overwhelming nature that is the work that we do. But if you have that mindset of, yes, being morally centered and constantly looking at the mission and vision, but at the end of the day, just saying yes and just doing it. I think the most amazing thing that our office just did is increasing that capacity to meet this moment in time to ensure that people who otherwise wouldn't have an opportunity to come to a country like the United States, we've now expanded our capacity and our resources to make sure that we are welcoming as many people as possible, and doing it effectively. So I think there's a lot of power in a simple slogan like that, and
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate that.
Simple, easy, and like it's just there, right? It just
Yeah,
flows off the tip of your tongue.
that's right.
Um, so then, again, talk about leadership, but then we're also in Central PA. So, what's some of the favorite things you like to do, or what's the one thing you would like to highlight for others that aren't from the area, or maybe have lived here for a while? What's your favorite thing to do here?
Yeah, my friend Erica and I, one of my beloved colleagues at CWS Harrisburg, we were just driving back from E-Town talking about many of these things of fun things to do in the area. One that came up was kayaking and
Okay.
tubing, whether it be, the Susquehanna, or in particular, we were talking about the Yellow Breeches.
Okay. Yep.
Have had many
Familiar. Yeah.
fun tubing adventures on the Yellow Breeches.
Okay.
And I think just in general, there's a lot of really cool outdoor spots in this area, whether it be tubing or kayaking or walking along the Greenbelt Trail here in Harrisburg, the Appalachia Trail, all the other wonderful outdoor things that we have, and of course, as we go into the spring and summer seasons, now's the time to do it. So
That's right.
I think if you're newer to this area, I would definitely take some time doing some research and looking at some really cool outdoor things that we have available to us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have a lot of state parks. I mean, right down 81. I mean, there's a lot of state parks,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Well, Alex, thank you very much again for attending the show, the interview, just sharing a little bit more about yourself, your leadership, as well as the mission of CWS. So, thank you again for sharing. Thanks to your team and all that you've done. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you, Wen. Really appreciate all of your support and appreciate this opportunity to speak today.
That brings us to the end of this episode. Thanks to Alex Swan for joining us during that engaging conversation. From forming his team, they have made tremendous impacts by welcoming and supporting the rise of new neighbors into the capital region. By focusing on trust, it enabled him and his team to meet the demand and adapt to new challenges. As always, thanks for listening to Seamless Tactics. If you enjoyed our show, please rate and review us on the streaming platform you're listening to us on. Until then, this is Wen Tan. And don't forget, we're here to highlight local leaders making an impact in our community and share leadership insights through storytelling. This podcast was recorded, produced, and edited by Wen Tan. This episode was brought to you by Harrisburg Regional Chamber and Cretic. Special thanks to CWS Harrisburg. Seamless Tactics is a product of Tailor Made Solutions. Hope you join us in our next show.